Hello, everyone. Welcome to Coriander Society Adventures. I'm your game master, tormented by gnomes, and joining me for tonight's one-on-one episode is Beatdown Boulevard. How you doing today?
Doing good. Yeah, good. What's up? How are you?
Same. Honestly, same. Can't
I'm
complain.
real bad at these. The how are yous, oh my gosh, yeah, you know how much fun and exciting stuff I got going on, gnomes. I was just watching anime earlier. Yeah.
What were you doing before that?
Eating breakfast, I guess. So that was my whole day.
That was a setup for you to say watching anime, and then I say it again, and you say watching anime.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
There was a guy in one of my college classes. Every single time anyone asked him that question, his answer was always, "I'm outstanding like a farmer in his field." Like every single time. It was just the default canned response he always had, which is a better answer. These days it's difficult. It's like, "How are you?" It's, "Well, I'm trapped at home in the midst of a global pandemic and an increasingly uncaring society as the last gasping twilight of our doomed earth crushes the long-term prospects of my future." But outside of that, on the local level, I'm good.
Yeah, I guess that is a bit of a mouthful.
Right?
Yeah.
It's, when people ask that question, do they actually mean how are you? Or are they just looking for you to say, I'm so excited to be here. We have a great round of games headed for you in our first bracket, that sort of thing.
Yeah. That's definitely like the thing you gotta like always iron out with people, or at least that's the reason why you have those default responses. Because like most of the time, I don't know. It's like, do they actually care? Do I actually tell them how I'm doing? It's literally like that exact pretty much what you said is like a little different from like what happened in BoJack, but it's like the same thing where it's like, I mean, if I tell them what's really going on, it's this, it's that. No, I'm not okay. Blah 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 blah. But instead of all that, I just say I'm fine.
Exactly. The social contract is upheld and we move on with our lives. Always eternal strangers to each other.
Truly.
Chat will give you inspiration if you tell them what anime. Or depending on the anime.
I was watching Osama Ranking. It's actually so good. Oh my god. It's like kind of new. It's been out for a little bit.
We'll see if that's worth inspiration or not. While we wait to find out, when we last left our hero, let's do a short recap. Coriander Society Adventures, the story of Gastone, the brilliant inventor vigilante, and Asena, the lounge singer who raised in the jungle who beats the crap out of people, who have discovered a larger universe. Their world is only one of countless other worlds filled with infinite possibility, worlds where dragons fight giant robots, where wooden sailing ships fly between the stars, and where gangsters and ninjas battle against robots that walk around, destroy. In this infinite universe of possibilities, they currently find themselves in the universe called PYRESPACE, a solar system whose planets are inhabited by elves involved in courtly intrigue, humans who sail across the seas of their sunny planet, Yuan-Ti snake people on their jungle world, and all of them connected by spelljamming ships, wooden ships that sail between the planets, kind of like Treasure Planet, except explicitly magic, not supposedly technological. They are here because... Why are they here? They're here because Hara, who was a mysterious rival / friend who turned out to be a dragon, wanted them to go to the dragon graveyard. No, wanted them to go to the Shrine of Wisdom in order to fulfill an old debt. That's been taken care of. They are still here because John Carmichael, their friend, traveling wizard and private eye, is cursed. And in order to break his curse, they need to find the Marspon abomination, which lives under the city of Spires on the desert planet of Ashen, capture this incredibly dangerous beast, extract its divine spark, and use that to rip the curse out of him and his protege, Charlie. That's why they're here. Gastone is in this particular group of Maru spawn, the denizens of this planet created long ago by the precursors from another universe. They are the ones who, this Marspon abomination is a really big version of them. So in order to fight this incredibly powerful foe, Gastone has been doing research into the Zymes that the Marspon create to enhance themselves, hoping to use that to reverse engineer it to create a weapon against the Marspon abomination in order to weaken it so it can be captured. He's had some success with that. He's developed several countermeasures, biological agents that he is preparing to introduce to the Marspon abomination when the fateful battle occurs. He's also explored some of the ancient Lacunian laboratories, found an energy being named Samuel, and located a tachyon containment field that the ancients were using in their time travel experiments. On another universe, the universe of Lacunas, that solar system is surrounded by a time-eating abomination from outer space, who Gastone has to kill someday. So he used this tachyon accelerator in order to slow down time for himself so that he could study it for 12 days in order to develop some countermeasures, which he did successfully, only slightly losing his grip on reality in the process. Emerging from that, he went back to his friends, who he's been traveling with, learned that he's been cut off from the rest of the party, from Gastone and from John and Asena, by an incredibly powerful sandstorm, so he went to bed. When he was going to bed, he started having some weird dreams, which he didn't realize were dreams at first. He was walking around, he was alone, things didn't make total sense, and now he's realized that he is in a dream with the gray elf from the planet Perianth, Medwethyn, who is testing him because he asked to learn dream magic from her earlier, and she has contacted him in his dream. He just discovered that last episode. I think I've covered everything. Have I missed anything?
That sounds like everything. More than I would have remembered, that's for sure.
Great. It's my job to remember. If I'm the one who's creating these ridiculously overcomplicated plot lines, it's my job to keep track of this crap.
You know what? I respect that.
Okay. The scene is Wound, the steak joint on the shores of one of the stinking canals of the city of Northport, where Gastone calls home. The local eatery where he, Asena, and John like to meet to recover their strength between their adventures. Across the table from him, completely out of place in this 1930s style steakhouse diner, is the elegant gray elf Medwethyn, covered in silver jewelry, flowing silk robes, sitting at a freaking counter with a newspaper and a mug of coffee in front of her in this dreamscape. Gastone has just now realized he is in fact in a dream. And her words to him once he realized it, once he figured it out, were the first step towards mastering oneiromancy is knowing when you're awake and when you're asleep. That is literally where we left off. Gastone, what do you do?
Well, that does sound like a pretty important tip. The timing is a little weird, but hey, long time. How are you?
She folds through the pages of the newspaper. What's written on them? It is, after all, your dream.
Oh, wow, I can decide, huh?
You can decide, or you can just tell me what would likely be on there.
It would probably be like stuff going on in Northport.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or you know, mad scientist captured, you know. Some article about Zorbis being captured. Shout out Gastone Tosto, something like that.
All right. So stories of the way in which he's making Northport a safer, better place and bringing people to justice.
Yeah.
All right. Medwethyn sort of crinkles the newspaper between her fingers. This is such odd parchment, and there's so much of it everywhere.
Not exactly parchment. We have a thing. We technically, this is paper.
Mm-hmm.
Comes from trees.
Yes. Well, we have that as well, but it's a bit more of a luxury product. This crinkle, smudge, less so. But there's so much of it.
Yeah, that's a whole thing in itself. We definitely have no shortage of trees, but we're working towards that. But anyways, I'm sure the economics of paper is not what brought you here.
She shrugs, almost casually. Actually, yes, not almost. She shrugs casually. Perhaps a better question, Gastone. What brings you here?
Oh, like you didn't do this?
No, I did. Well, you passed your first lesson, so let me explain a little bit. She gestures at the cafe of Wound around you. All of this springs forth from you. When you sleep, your mind extends itself into this place. And it leaks. It it spills forth. Whatever was locked up in your subconscious or processed throughout the day, it flows out from you. And here, as far as the mind is concerned, it's real. Most do this unconsciously. And their grip on it when they awake, it's like sand falling through their fingers. But every mortal mind does this naturally. So all of this comes from you. And because the subconscious mind is in control, you only have bits and flickers of it going on around you. And unless you become conscious at the same time, you'll never know it's a dream until you wake up. This is not my dream. I found you here. I am in your dream. Imagine Gastone's sitting there like,
Literally like, oh, fair enough. Well, I often think of home, especially being away from it, not only for as long as we have, but also in the manor, because not sure about you. I only very, very, very recently discovered the vastness of this universe, and it's not like I've also had time to really work it out in my head. It's been kind of go for the last, how long's it been in World, Joe?
God, like a couple weeks at most.
Oh my God. How is he not crazy already?
Episode 56. And it's only been a couple of weeks at most.
Holy shit. Yeah, a couple weeks.
Well, the waking world can't trouble you here. You have much, much more time to parse it out, should you so desire it.
That's handy.
Yes.
Is this a thing I can do regularly then, where I'll be able to...
With practice, with discipline,
okay.
Yes. Okay. Like I said, the first step is knowing when you're asleep. The second step is becoming aware while you're asleep. And instead of letting your subconscious guide you, you guide it. She is now holding a fine crystalline chalice of elven wine. She takes a sip, sets it down right next to her coffee, which she sort of eyes warily. None of this is real. This is all stemming from your mind. You should be able to change it.
I'm going to change her glass of wine to coffee.
Okay. Roll a charisma check. A flat charisma check. $15. It changes as she's lifting it up to her hands, and she's about to take a sip when the steam sort of gets her in her eyes, and she smiles. All right, that's good. You got a 15, right?
Yeah.
She focuses on the coffee, and you have the home field advantage, so it doesn't turn back into elven wine. So she shrugs and she hazards a sip. Sets it down politely. Roll an insight check. $25. She is trying not to be rude, but she does not like it.
I just want to say something. That's not for everybody.
So it seems. Let's keep tonight's. She waves a hand vaguely. She's on another planet with its own, day-night cycle.
Yeah.
Let's keep tonight's exercise confined strictly to your dreamscape, Gastone. But as I said, we have a lot of time. Time passes differently in the subconscious. More space to work things out, more room to reflect. Perhaps the only disadvantage is that there isn't really any, my presence notwithstanding, there's not really any outside references or sources or new perspectives. Only changed perspectives on what already flows forth from your mind. So, given that we have some time, what are your thoughts on all of this traveling? You are very, very far from home.
Wow. I never actually took the time to think about it. It just kind of seemed right at the time. I think it's exciting. It's been enlightening, to say the least. Also very dangerous, but that part was the same at home.
So why did you leave? She tries another sip of the coffee. Needs something.
Can I like will some sugar into it?
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay. Charisma, right?
Mm-hmm. A flat charisma check. She's not opposing this on you, so you will the sugar directly into it.
And I'll quickly be like, try again.
Closer. Yes, why'd you leave?
Because I thought I could do more.
More what?
More good, I guess.
And what does that quantify?
It more about the scope, I suppose. Whereas most of what I would do / deal with was confined to this city, in some ways country, but it's a lot more on the smaller scale. But then posed with issues that maybe not necessarily I'm the only one who can deal with them, but where I'd have a pretty solid shot, it just made the most sense to try it.
And what does doing good look like to you? The waiter, whose face is just sort of a blur, no specific face, like almost as if this is a film being shot at seating level, so the waiter's face never comes into frame, walks over and offers her some food, and she sort of waves him off.
Can I show her instead of tell her?
What would you like to try?
I want to try and show her the Florence waking up from the pod, and like that last bit of that ordeal, I should say.
Okay. Roll a charisma check.
Charisma.
5.
I was given inspiration. Can I use one?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Nice. Go ahead and mark that off. 14. All right. For a moment, when you focus on Florence, the two of you are still seated at the benches at the booth that came from Wound, but it's now in the basement underneath Thornacre. There are Zorbots everywhere walking around. They immediately notice you. Destroy. And you see Florence in the pod, but then Florence in the pod stays, and the entire area around, as you can sort of focus yourself again, shifts to the place where you opened the pod back up safely. And
kind of like this.
You play through the entire thing. Mm-hmm. Who is she to you?
Technically a stranger. We had never met until technically when she woke up, but I had never seen her until the beginning of that scene. I don't even think I knew she existed.
And you just decided to make her your cause because...
Cause is a strong word.
What's a better word?
I don't know if there is one, because it isn't as much about her as any word like cause can define. It's simpler than that, at least for me. Because literally that situation was literally like, I don't know, that just looked like it sucked. You just spending your whole life in a pod, and me having at least some of the skills that I have and that ability to maybe figure out some other shit. I just decide, hey, maybe I can fix it.
If you just keep doing that every single time you encounter a situation that you might be able to help with, a person who your skills would uniquely assist, you're just going to continue to be led across the universe forever until you decide to stop. There's no end to the, or you die. Is that the plan?
Mm-hmm. It became the plan.
Mm-hmm. Not by your own design.
I would say it was. I could have said no. I could have stayed in Northport.
Just whether or not you opted in is not the same as it being your idea.
That part, okay, fair. I won't argue that.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't feel that different from the way I usually do things. Kind of like before. Again, it just becomes a matter of scope.
Mm-hmm. So it's not so much the city. She looks around and roll a wisdom saving throw.
Ooh.
Okay. When she says the city, what springs to mind? What's the first thing Gastone thinks of when she says the city?
Northport.
Where in Northport?
We'll say first thing that comes to mind. Probably the theater I worked at. Okay,
you're there now. Probably after hours, which is when you spent most of your time there, not live during shows, but like in the back lot, making things, so on and so forth. There's a poster for the latest film starring Tobias Nash up on the wall. So it's not so much the city that's important as just there's a need that you could fulfill.
Yes and no. I mean, there's definitely the fondness and nostalgia that comes with, the place you were born.
Mm-hmm.
But it does a big part of what I do think about for sure is like when I think about Northport now, looking back, of course it is the usual stuff like, oh, I wonder what's changed, even though I've only been gone a couple of weeks. Who knows? Time gets weird where I've been, or where I'm sure you know. And despite the thinking about like the problems that I left behind as well, because I very specifically am recalling a particular thing that I have a sort of band-aid solution in play right now. And a lot of this place is me thinking about, all right, what do I do about that when I come back?
As you think about these things in the dreamscape, they rise to the surface. Just stray thoughts that are going through your mind, they tend to leak. That's one of the things about the dreamscape, is that as you're thinking about these problems, they manifest themselves somehow around you. They go out of just your head because you are walking around inside a space created by your own head. So ninjas, gangsters, explosions, gunfights, all the worst things that could happen, or sort of your hopes for the bandage, they start to leak into the theater. So if some terrible threat arose back here that threatened the entire city that you left behind, but you couldn't pursue it without abandoning John and Asena, what would you do?
I guess it depends on the situation.
Like what?
What are they dealing with here versus what is going on there? Because even though, it's tough. Because I would much rather deal with it myself.
John and Asena will die if you don't help them. The city will be burned to the ground if you don't go back. What would you do?
I don't know. I hope I never have to choose.
Let's hope it's so. She takes a couple of steps forward out through the door of the theater and out into the beautiful, magically illuminated woods of Perianth, where there's elven music playing, delicious food. There's a faint wind coming through the trees, nice, cool, and refreshing. It's that autumnal, misty, slight chill, that crispness in the air. And a complete change of pace from all the smoke and the imagined blood and gunfire of Northport. And she waves a hand for you to follow. Do you do so, or do you linger behind in the theater?
Probably look around.
Okay.
But we'll follow shortly after.
Okay. Matt has given you advantage and me disadvantage. All is right with the world.
Get bent, my dude. Oh no.
Medwethyn leads you back into the high treetops and the balcony rooms of the elven nobility that you enjoyed not that like a week ago or less. My world is beset with its own complications, as I'm sure is each one you have walked. John has shared his tales with me, and we've been privy to each other's dreams before. I've seen cities not unlike your own. Places of stone, concrete, and steel, beautiful in its own way. I'm curious to see whether or not you'll choose to help us the same way you're helping your own place. You're being pulled in so many different directions. You can't possibly help everybody.
That's what you think.
She smiles. What do you think you're going? And she she reclines on a bench. It's covered with a cushion that's made of like living wood that just rises out of the trunk, cajoled by magic and delicate art over hundreds of years to take that exact shape. Once you've helped to free John from his curse, do you go home?
Before that, this is my dream. How are you manipulating things?
She smiles. I'm very good at what I do.
Fair enough. To your question, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
After helping John with his curse, just going through like the mental checklist of things you got to do. There's this. Actually, yes. At least that's the plan right now. Because, I mean, there's the whole Maru spawn thing, but that should not take very long. And also, curing their whole genetic issue. That whatever, I can take care of that. Once all that's done, yes. Yeah. Home sounds good.
You know, a man with your skills, having seen so much of the world, you already have a knowledge of craft and artifice beyond anyone in this world can possibly master. I'd ask why it is you want to learn dream magic, but I think I understand. You don't understand it, and you want to, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's simple enough. There could very easily be a place for you in the court of Fluris, if you so wanted. King Indogalad his sight reaches far. He sees beyond the mere squabbles of the elven courts. Along with John, he is the one who envisioned the ether relay that could change transport throughout the entire system forever. I've seen bits and pieces of your world, the way, the vastness, the scale of craft. Everything here, she gestures from the trellises on that cover the windows to the beautiful handmade, magically sculpted furniture to the artwork that hangs. Everything that we do as a people, that the elves of Perianth do, is an act of love and of passion. Crafted over the course of years and years that it takes to learn mastery. But you pick up on things so quickly, and the technology that you understand is so beyond anything on this world. If you really understood that, and you understood magic, you could usher in change in these other places that you go. If you stayed there, you could revolutionize, completely transform them. King Indogalad would, with your help, with your mind, the way you understand things from beyond this world, and if your grasp of magic increased, there is so much that you could do. Beyond even changing the way that people think, changing the way that people live their lives, there are terrible threats. I've seen them. John has seen them. And I know we could use your help against them.
It's interesting. Truthfully, I'd probably do it. Of course, as long as you're okay with a maybe not so favorable section on my timetable. Just because priorities. You know how it goes.
We're very long-lived. We have a different scope of time
True.
than most humans do.
I'm working on that too, don't worry.
But Indogalad would richly reward you and give you the resources and authority you would need and a place of honor in the court. Think about it.
How long do I have?
She shrugs. How old are you?
What a great question.
I don't remember if that's on his character sheet or not.
I don't think it is. We're gonna say, let's say.
I have this in the timetable. Actually, it's going to take me.
Is that actually a thing?
Yeah, I don't know if it's shared because I'm pretty sure that's like the super secret document of secret timetables and such. But I have this. Okay. I can pull it up in a moment. Sure. Anyways, the point that she's making is that elves, again, they think in centuries. Mm-hmm. They think in centuries. You may not have that luxury, but that doesn't mean do it right now. It just means, hey, if you want a really nice gig surrounded by magic, authority, like you would be such a big honcho with your tech knowledge that if you could weave that into magic, you could completely destroy the balance. Like you're over leveled for the area. You're not over leveled, but like in some ways you're over spec for the area. You could completely take over.
Mm. Cool. It's a good chance I'll take you up on that.
Mm-hmm. All right, now where is Gastone is born? Gastone, I have in my notes as being about 30 years old.
Nice. That's what I was going to say on a whim, too, so that's
sweet.
Perfect.
Yep. Thus saith the timeline. Now, I'm going to roll a perception check. No, an insight check from Medwethyn. With disadvantage because Matt.
Yeah.
She's sitting there. There's a teapot next to her, and she's just sort of idly watching you, seeing what you're trying to see what you're thinking. But it's a dream, so who knows? And she's not saying anything until you do at this point.
Was this offer why you reached out to me?
No. You reached out to me first.
Ah. Fair enough.
I'm just making good on that.
Well, it's appreciated. I will say I'm good for repayment. So you'll definitely hear from me soon. As I'm sure the reverse will also be true, since I can't imagine even I could master Oneiromancy in one lesson.
No. But if you can figure out how to work your way back to me, then I'll know that you figured things out pretty well. But let's not rush. For now, simply becoming aware of the fact that you are dreaming and shaping those dreams around you is practice enough. Have you ever become aware of yourself in a dream but not quite been able to change it? You've tried to fly and you can just glide over the ground.
Yes.
The subconscious mind is inherently wild and does not want to be mastered. It wants to stretch out and relax and flow into the only time that it is completely alone. It's with you during the waking, of course. It actually guides most of our choices, but it's only spared the constant chattering of consciousness when you sleep. And it does not take well to continuing to be told what to do, which is why there's a great deal of inertia that pushes back against you. But the more that you do that, the more that you practice that, becoming salient of your dreaming and taking hold of it, that's the first step. And that's not even magic. Well, no more than anything else is. Is that what you wanted to learn?
Well, first I wanted to learn what it consisted of, and now that I have, yes.
Okay, well, I wouldn't go that far. Lucid dreaming is not the same as oneiromancy, which is not really the same as dream walking. This is you, but I got here somehow. That is dream walking. The ability to leave behind the place created by your own unconscious mind, to wrap it around yourself, and to find the islands, the bubbles, the flickering lights of others in the infinite psychic expanse. That we're not going to do tonight. That is going to take some practice. Then there's the art of drawing from this place into the waking world. And that is magic. That is something that will not be a simple matter of training. Again, any mind can learn lucid dreaming. Particularly focused and strong minds can learn dream walking. But oneiromancy, to draw upon the power of dreams, to pull the energy from this place into the material, that is magic. And that is the last thing we're going to try with you. And if you can do that, that opens all sorts of other doors. Now, unless you have any other questions, I want a tour of your city.
No, not at this time. What's your preferred method of transportation? Are we trying to, abuse dream mechanics, or are we trying to get, what's the word I'm looking for? You want the authentic experience?
Whatever means the most to you, whatever you think is the best, is going to be the most authentic. What's the difference? What are you playing at?
You'll see. I'm just gonna hail a cab.
All right. You hail a cab and it drives up the branches of the tree like that one Mario Kart level. You know that one I'm talking about? And it pulls up, and it's that same poor guy who always gets called.
I knew you would know. I didn't even have to say it.
Yeah, well, now I've seen everything. Will we be crashing through any buildings, getting stomped on by giant robots? What's the plan today, boss?
I'll be real. Today's gonna be mild, all things considered.
Doubt.
Just a tour, good sir.
All right, well, you tell me where.
Why don't we start at the docks?
The docks?
Docks.
All right. Medwethyn rises off of her lounge, sort of looks around, and the cab looks and smells authentic, right? It doesn't smell bad, but it definitely smells stale. It smells like cigarettes and bad coffee, and exhaust. So she sits down, sort of drawing her blue and silver robes around herself, adjusting her jewelry as she sort of ducks underneath, hops in, door closes, and the car goes driving down a very steep, very smooth, dangerously rounded branch through a tunnel and emerges out by the docks of Northport, which I'm actually going to pull up at least somewhat in a moment. Oh, where are we? Boop, 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 boop. There we go.
God, remember Northport?
Right? I think I'm capturing the wrong... Yeah, I'm capturing the wrong nonsense. Please stand by. Goodness is there's no spoilers on this page. All right. Well, where do you want to go on the... Which docks did you want to be by? While I fix this to get rid of the spoilers.
By probably by Newton. Like by my lab. And it would just kind of be like you can see if I do rulers, right?
I should be able
like,
to, yes.
Like throughout here, here kind of deal.
All right, so you start by Seaside, right? Cool. Seaside is where I wouldn't call it the docks exactly. It's not a part of town, even though it's not that far away. It's not a part of town you go to very frequently. It's like the rich beach. It's where the old money mansions and stuff are. It's where you go to the beach instead of being, down by the harbor where all the ships come in and such. That and Bailey Hook is where the nice sandy places are. Dorothy Emersmith, one of the angel killers who died at the battle in the garden, from a very rich family. Her mansion is in this part of town. But then when you cross over into the harbor district, this is much more the area you're familiar with. The warehouses, the ships, the massive ships coming into port, the canal that runs through the river all the way down into the harbor. Canals that where bodies sometimes drift down from the various acts of mob violence passing through the area. Right. She is very interested. She's not, gawking at the door like a teenager, but she's definitely looking up, and she has to crane her neck a little bit. She's fairly tall. She's looking up, slightly reflected in the glass. And what sort of stuff are you pointing out along the way? What?
Oh, first of all, as she's doing that, it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna dream the roof of the cabbie, to be transparent.
Okay, roll a charisma check. Yes, it's transparent instead of ripping off.
I'm really glad I specified that.
All right, she nods appreciatively and with a bit of approval. Well done. Not like, you're learning, but excellent, good, this is a good sign. And so now she can see much better as you drive past the old beach mansions and cross over into the harbor district. Carry on from there.
So, so I'd point out the lab for sure, the place I usually work. One thing would be cool if this is within my capabilities. Whenever we go by a wall, it can give the inside look of places.
Okay, like the cutaway, like the diagram version of it.
Kinda, yeah.
One of those books where everything's exploded out and you can look through it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I like it. Aside from your laboratory, which, you know, she can sort of see all the way down into where Dorothy's pod was. There's little bits and echoes of memory of things that have happened in there. There's a flower left there by the white ghost along with her message, though it's illegible at this distance. Just shadows and echoes of what's gone past.
Mm-hmm.
She's super curious about the library, about the laboratory, and such a dark and dismal place. You don't like a little bit more light or fresh air where you work?
For one reason or another, having things more closed out is better. You know, what's the word? Sometimes some chemicals don't do great when open air is involved. Things like that.
That I understand. There's a secret tunnel that runs out into the street. Do you include that or no?
No.
Okay. That part is obscured, and she's not particularly prying right now. All right, yeah. Built from bricks and cast iron girders, this unassuming warehouse hides the most sophisticated scientific facility in all of Northport. Is there anything particular? What was that?
I said, suck on that, Zorbius.
Well, obviously his lab isn't in here.
Oh, good point.
It's out of the city limits.
Fair.
What is the most important research that you've done there? What are you most proud of?
Most proud of something I've done here. It would probably have to be. You would probably have to be helping Florence and figuring out how to make that that suit work so that her powers don't, for all intents and purposes, kill her. Although I will admit I didn't design them necessarily. I just acquired them and then we'll say retooled.
Still impressive. What's been the most confounding?
What does that mean?
Difficult, perplexing, confusing, frustrating.
Also that. Because that shit was hard.
And what do you aspire to do? You've succeeded with that.
Mm-hmm.
What looms on the horizon for you next when you return here? Is your next great concern somewhere there? She points again at the laboratory and all the notes and tools and cucumber sandwiches strewn about the place.
In part. And also, I guess we can kind of skip to the Donahue Institute.
Okay. Just
yeah. And also here.
Mm-hmm.
Which is likely where the girl you saw previously is staying, along with others we've helped in the past and others who just generally need that keeping an eye out on, especially because we'll say their special properties make them a target.
All right. DM asking, not Medwethyn asking, when you think of the Donahue Institute, what are the strongest memories or associations that you have with the place?
The giant Zorbot.
Okay, then that is part of this. Is it the battle or after it's destroyed?
The aftermath. You remember when the like Gastone's half brother's ship was also like shipwrecked? That whole scene.
Mm-hmm. All right, so it's still smoke rising from the place, a giant glowing galleon that John summoned with his magic that landed on the damn thing, the crashed craft, fires being put out, the whole post-battle, not a place of peace, not a place of safety. Though, because you first described it as such, the people here in your memory, in your dream, don't seem to be super bothered by everything going on. Like, they're dealing with it, but they're not really stressed out. It's just like, oh, another day of classes at the school for for magically gifted youngsters, cleaning up the wreckage of the giant robot that attacked and all that. She looks at that thing. That is the largest construct I have ever seen. Are these common where you come from?
No, not really. This was definitely a, knocks on wood, an isolated incident.
Mm-hmm. The cab happens to have like wood panels on the inside when you go to knock on wood.
Nice.
Why did we come here again?
You asked what was
your greatest accomplishment, what you're most proud of, and what's most confounding.
You asked what was next.
Yes. So what is next?
Well, some ideas that I need to iron out. That's why we passed the lab. Florence is here, the girl from before, to see how she's doing because, until we left her here, she was basically a vegetable. So, be great to see if that is still if she's still not, which would be great. And the third thing, where would I put this? I think the best thing is, I don't remember where it was, but if you remember that conversation I had with the White Ghost before we left.
Was that on the bridge?
I think it was.
Mm-hmm. I think it was on this bridge, or it was on this bridge here.
Yeah. Basically jumping there, showing that conversation, and other things I need to finish.
So when you arrive here, you and Medwethyn are in the car, but you're also out there on the bridge, silhouetted by the setting sun, alongside the White Ghost, talking about things. But you don't see from that you's perspective. You just see that you over there. And what other things are you concerned about? What is this?
So a lot of this, what I do started out, involved in dealing with local criminal elements, and there was recently a situation, and it definitely, even though problems were solved, more were also created in their stead. Things I wanted to specifically deal with, but because of what I had to admit were more pressing issues, hence everything I've done the last couple weeks, I left them temporarily in the hands of another.
Do you trust her?
Yes.
No insight check needed to detect that.
I laugh just because I'm remembering that one scene at the... where was it? When we had to kill Sunjia.
That was at the garden.
Yeah, and we basically... At first, she was like, pretending she was part of the staff. And I said, fuck that. I'm telling them you're a traitor. So now you have to help us.
Well, that memory sort of wants to conjure itself up. You can try to suppress it with a wisdom check or a charisma check, or it can start to bubble up.
I will let it bubble up.
Okay, you're back in the garden. And this is not the version of the garden that exactly transpired last time, because there are certain elements of it that are the most important to you. Amidst all the chaos, the explosions, John making everybody do patty cake against each other, the revelation of Dre Dodson's identity, is that moment with the White Ghost basically forcing her hand? What elements of that whole encounter that happened in the garden stand out the most? Medwethyn wasn't there. She wouldn't understand it. So explain to me, set the scene for somebody who wasn't there.
So it would definitely be the scene of forcing her hand. Also, the whole thing with Dre Dodson and all that, I think, is less important. It's mostly just about what bit of work we did with the White Ghost at the time, which kind of, I guess, kind of set the stage for whatever the hell is going on between those two.
Okay.
I don't think anything else from that night is too important with that in mind.
All right. That's so weird. You basically strong-armed her into it and then killed the person she was supposed to be bodyguarding, but she knew that that person was in fact an undead abomination. Yeah, all things considered, the White Ghost has been fairly understanding about the entire situation.
Yeah, and I mean, unless this is some insane, twisted long con for her to assassinate me when my guard is down.
Which there have been opportunities to do along the way.
Yeah, I don't know. That I feel like that would be kind of stupid because, look, despite my technical and just general knowledge, I have a feeling if she wanted me dead, I would be dead. Yeah. I would be one of the bodies going through the canal.
A fair take. But you want to come back and clean this up. What does cleaned up mean to you? When would you be able to leave comfortably?
Honestly, I don't think it would take that long. Just because it's mostly gang politics. That, you know, there's been a balance for X amount of time. Balance is tipped. Power vacuum is created. Problems arise because of it. That whole thing.
That could be useful in the future.
That event or the experience?
The experience.
Oh, yeah. From the tidbits you said about the Elven Court, I'm sure.
Yes. Is perhaps less obvious as smoldering corpses go flying past in the dreamscape. Less obvious, a more subtle poison that governs the balance of power. But at the end of the day, not that different. Just fancier.
True.
Do you love this place? You've given your life to it. I can see that in all the details, every alleyway, every building, the way that it's ingrained into your mind. I can tell you've given most of your waking life to it. But I don't know if you love it.
I do.
You do. Why?
Don't know. I guess it's just because it's mine, and not in the possessive kind of way, just in the way that anyone's hometown is to them.
Roll insight for me, Gastone.
Sure.
Wow, you are on fire. She does that thing where you don't say anything and you don't make a face and you don't respond at all in order to not have to disagree or counter what somebody says. When you say, as anyone loves their hometown.
Then I will just prompt spit it out.
There was little for me where I was born. I find the Court of Fleurs much more enthralling, much more engaging. There's so much more to do and see there than in my home.
And I misspoke. I apologize.
None needed. Now, I wouldn't mind sampling some of the more mundane experiences here.
Not sure I'm the guy to tell you about that. I won't lie.
You derive no simple joys from your home?
Cucumber sandwiches?
What's that?
I'm just going to try and or I'll just say, hold out your hand.
Okay, she'll do so.
And then I will try to
All right.
a sandwich.
Roll a charisma check. Okay, a sandwich. You are still sitting in the back of a cab with a transparent roof. Where's the last place you were? The garden? The Triple Union
Yes.
Society garden?
Yes.
All right. She looks around. I'm sure this was a nice place at one point before you and Asena and John happened.
Yes.
Where else? Somewhere fitting.
Define fitting.
Where would you go if you weren't building anything or fighting anything or protecting anything and you were going to enjoy the simple delights of life
Ooh,
in pleasant
on the bridge.
company? The bridge? All right. You're back there. Is the white ghost there?
Not this time.
Okay. What time of day is it?
Like late night. I'm talking like 3 a.m.
Okay, nice. And what's the weather like?
Like just minimal clouds,
Okay.
warm, nothing too crazy.
And is it the Dockside Tide Point Bridge or the Gloverton Bouchard Bridge?
The Tide Point Bridge.
Okay, so closer to the mouth of the bay. What kind of sounds are at play?
What's going on at 3 a.m. in Northport? Minimal cars, not a whole lot going on, especially I think around here. I would think it's quiet.
All right, so just the river, no ships, no bells, none of that.
Maybe a gunshot.
Okay. Yeah, no, that tracks. 3 a.m., Dockside, Tide Point. This is Gastone's Northport. This is the authentic experience.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. All right. No, this is, you want to understand somebody, this is a good way to understand somebody. This is who Gastone is. Standing at the edge of the bridge in the industrial part of town at 3 a.m. eating cucumber sandwiches. All right. When she's done with that, or when the two of you just sit there, like, is there any idle chatter? Do you let it fall into silence? Again, she's an elf. She's a couple hundred years old. She does not believe in awkward silences. As in, they aren't awkward to her.
Oh, no. I'm fine with quiet.
All right. Well, after she's eaten the cucumber sandwich, which you got like a 12, so it was fine. It was good. It was good. Completely acceptable. He says, how much time do you think has passed?
I don't have a clue.
She thinks for a moment. Her eyes sort of glaze over as she contemplates. I think we still have time.
Wait, you're not asleep, are you?
Elves don't sleep.
Huh.
We walk the paths of memories. Most of us never tread. Most of our minds never go this way, walk these roads. Oneiromancy is a rare art. It sets me apart. It gives me an edge amongst the many talented and brilliant individuals in the court of Fluris. I go places others cannot go. Makes me unique, makes me useful. Is there anything else you want to show me while we're here? Because if not, let me know.
Is there anything else you want to know?
Only if you think it's important. There is ample time.
Nothing comes to mind. I had a question, though.
Yes.
Does doing this affect the quality of my sleep? I guess you don't sleep, so maybe you don't know.
I'm studied enough in the matter to know how it impacts the minds of others. Judiciously, it shouldn't. The unconscious mind needs space and freedom. If you merely turn the conscious mind to wander through it, to be cognizant of it, then no, it won't. She gets almost this knowing smile. But if you use this time to focus on the tasks one would during waking, then you deprive the mind of the opportunity to stretch, to grow, to breathe. So I wouldn't spend too much time in your laboratory within your own head, Gastone.
That is good to know.
And there are dangers here, though they're rare.
Like what?
Well, I found you here. I arrived here from the outside. There are others with the same power. There are things with the same power. They're rare, but they are out there. And being able to lucid dream makes you both more equipped to deal with them and more likely to attract their attention. So, until you are very adept at this, I would stay within your own head. The last thing you want to do is get caught outside of your own dreamscape before mastering the ability to properly defend yourself. Was that your only question?
Yeah, that's about it. Because I imagine it's probably useful that I'm learning this then if I do end up joining the Elven Court.
Yes. Speaking of which, thank you first for sharing this with me. It's very different from my home. She looks out over like the smokestacks of Dockside and the factories and all that stuff. The gunshots, the fact that this place is inextricably bound with the idea of violence in Gastone's head. There's no way to separate Northport from violence in Gastone's mind. It's different, and it's something that I would never likely experience myself. So thank you.
No problem. I could say the same about what's the planet called?
Perianth.
Could say the same about Perianth.
Well, there is another world you have yet to see. And you've shared a great deal about how you work, Gastone Tosto. Let me show you this as well. Her face becomes more somber. And the sky almost crusts over, calcifies. The stars go out one by one, not dying, but obscured, replaced. And the buildings all around Northport start to fuse together. The concrete paves over them, and they ripple and grow and start to rise up towards the stars themselves. The city is not gone, but it is changed. It gathers itself up in great columns of limestone, and the buildings ride the limestone up and then ring around it. Almost like a calcified reflection of the tree city of Perianth, but instead of being built from the living wood of enormous trees, it is carved, chiseled into the limestone in an enormous cavern rising hundreds of feet up. And the stalagmites and the stalactites are all inhabited and limned with violet and red lights, little glowing dots in a cavernous city, shrouded in darkness, illuminated by unsettling flames. It's pretty freaking huge, and it is not pretty. In fact, most of it looks pretty hacked on top of itself, just heaped up along the floor of the cavern. It's barely structures, constantly falling over on top of each other. built with nothing except a stone and barely any other materials, a place of squalor and misery. But the one thing that has carried over, something you are very familiar with, something you know intimately, is violence. This is a place that reflects the violence of Northport, but without the places of safety, without the people that you were trying to protect. Or perhaps merely in the absence of someone like you. What it is in some ways a reflection of what Northport would be if it was given over entirely to the forces that seek to hoard things to themselves and leave everyone else with nothing. It is an unearthly place. And all along the floor of it are swords and spears raised in the hands of elves. You and Medwethyn stand on an alcove at the far edge of the cavern. But there's almost a vertigo zoom where the central column, the central stalagmite that is rising up from the ceiling and reaching a stalactite in the middle, at that center is the largest structure, grotesque, built up in a show of decadence and strength, in defiance of those living in squalor below. And even though you are very, very far away, probably thousands of feet away from it, it's still zoomed in as everything else sort of falls away. Again, like a vertigo zoom with the camera. Mm-hmm. This entire city is inhabited by elves who are not living in anything resembling the splendor of the court of Fluris or the bounty of the planet of Perianth. They are wearing rags and hides. They are scraggle-haired, poorly nourished, covered in scars, withered, hardened, and furious, filled with rage and desperation. And the ones who lord over them, not that much better off. Sure, they have more. They're clearly better equipped, better fed, but they still have that hunger about them. They are barely the lords of a scrap heap.
Mm-hmm.
And at the very heart of it, their masters have gathered, the strongest of the strong, clad in spider silk robes, drinking from goblets of blood, all of them eyeing each other warily. Medwethyn by your side is almost in a trance as all of this is happening, as all this rises from her mind. Roll an insight check for me. Okay, a 13. She is barely present as this just exudes from her mind. So focused on recreating this memory that she herself, her conscious mind, is not really with you. But you're still privy to this meeting. And at the very center, the elves gather around another figure who holds a hand, a bizarre, slick, rubbery, purple, tendrilled hand with long claws at the end. And in its hand is a device. Roll a technology or roll a science check for me. This is Lacunian. This is a piece of Lacunian technology. And it projects an image that rises up from it of a ship. A spaceship, far more sophisticated than anything. You would have been vaguely aware of this tech. You've never come directly into contact with this tech, but your research into the Lacunians, your brief experience with the Wayfarer craft that Asena was on, you're at least somewhat familiar with this tech. But this ship is enormous, over a mile long, a gigantic colony ship. Its schematics appear, it's sort of each of its pieces of the hologram float out and Lacunian labels point to it. And this figure shrouded with a hood holds out its hand. This creature is 8 feet tall, probably. Enormous. Holds out its hand towards the elves. And a voice speaks not in your ears, but instead in your mind. And you can tell it's not speaking to you. It's speaking to the elves who have gathered around. And yet you're able to hear it.
Find for us the power of the ancients, and we will give you what you need to destroy your enemies.
And we're going to go ahead and take a short break. We'll be back in a few. Don't go anywhere, folks. Coriander Society will return.